I'm very fortunate and looking forward to speak on a song that's very important to me. And I think that when we speak about music, we sometimes focus on certain elements that we know and that we are comfortable speaking about. So here I am as the music director coming up here to talk about music, and you might think that I would talk about the musical elements that make something exciting for me, or the pieces of the song, the technical bits that make it exciting for me. And so I was pondering how I was going to approach this talk. And I'm thinking this is more of a discussion rather than a sermon, I think. That's the way I've framed it in my brain. I need to frame things in my brain. So this is a discussion. And I was thinking about how to approach this. And there's many ways to approach. You know, Martha has described this as favorite songs and how they feed our spirits. And I thought a little bit about what that means to me. And there's different ways that we can approach that. There's music that is spiritually uplifting, that speaks of topics that raise us up or make us ponder or allow us to delve deeper into a subject. And that is based upon the lyrical content. Then there's music that has musical elements that are exciting to us, that make us feel something, that are evocative, that are frustrating, that make us, that transport us to a different place. And that's a different way of approaching this. And then there's the third way in my mind. And the third way is all about context. And some of the songs that we've been exploring over the past few weeks have delved into these different topics. There have been elements on each that I've heard that speak about what makes a song exciting and what makes it a favorite. And that we've delved into all of these. We've delved into context, in moments of memory that these songs bring us to. We've delved into musical elements that make it such a beautiful, impactful song. And we focused on lyrics and how they might spiritually uplift us. And so for me, this song does a bit of all of that. And it was pretty simple for me to choose this song. And the song I've chosen today is Someone to Watch Over Me. But the reason it's so very deeply impactful for me is the context that I have with this song. It's a song I've known, and you might know it as well, especially after I've played it. You'll recognize the tune. It's a song by George Gershwin. George Gershwin was known for his dramatic, however operatic music. George Gershwin originally was writing operettas and opera music. So Summertime is actually not a jazz standard like we think. Summertime and the living is. It's not. It's actually summertime and the living is. It's actually operatic. And so we have this perception of what we think the composer is before we know. At least I do. You know, I've heard a lot of, I've got rhythm, I've got music, I've got my gal who could ask for anything more. That's all Gershwin. So there's this variety of tone. We've got this serious operatic sound. We've got music theater, and we've got everything in between. And he wrote a lot of popular music, and this was a popular song. He was known for his ballads. He was known for bringing such a simple concept into a song and elaborating on it. But I learned this song far before I knew any of that. And I knew long before I knew how to even contextualize that. I learned this song when I was a child. And I'll paint a picture for you, because this picture is going to grow as I continue this story. Let's say I'm 7 or 8 years old. Picture yourself, or picture me, as a 7 or 8-year-old, buzzing with creative energy. Just having started piano lessons when I was 5, just dying to know more and learn more and grow in this world. And everybody that knew me and saw me explore, how do I say it? Yeah, I'll just say it. They saw something in me, and they knew that there was something going on. And the one person in my life that knew it the most was my grandfather, John Barnham. So let's picture me as a inquisitive young boy, staying over at my grandparents' house, Nanny and Granddad, from London, England. They had moved there when they were 20 and 24 on a boat. They took 10 days at sea. Can you imagine 10 days on a rickety boat across the Atlantic? And so let's fast forward to me at a 7-year-old in their home, okay? Think of this old, beautiful, just modest house, the basement, bright orange, quilted carpet, neon, right? Kind of 70s. Wood panel walls. And I'll never forget the most vivid part of my childhood memory of their home was their piano. It was bright orange. My grandfather had painted the piano to match the floors. So and if you'd like to see after, I have pictures I'd love to show you. I didn't put it here, but because I didn't necessarily want to send them around. They're very personal to me, but I'm happy to show. There's a picture of me, even younger than that, as 4-year-old, sitting at a piano. And it was this orange piano in that basement, and that was the first time I ever touched a piano. And we have it on footage, which is wonderful. Anyway, so I'm a 7-year-old. And or 8-year-old, I walk into the basement, and I say, "Granddad, would you teach me something?" And he sat down and he played. And that song, from that moment on, became a lifeline between me and my grandfather. A bit of context now about him. He was the inspiration. He was my musical inspiration. But not only that, he taught me at a young age what it meant to be a good person, what it meant to be a loving family member, what it meant to be a good citizen, what it meant to be respectful and kind and polite and gentle, what it meant to be courageous, what it meant to be expressive. And so here he is, and he sits down and he plays this song for me. And he sits me on his right knee, and he teaches me the melody. From that moment, that melody just lived in me. And from learning that melody, it taught me some fundamentals on what it means to make music. It taught me that you could put any chord you want underneath that melody and it'll work. It taught me some of the things that ultimately brought me to where I am today. Okay? So let's just put that story aside. I get into high school. And, at this point, I've figured out what it means to be a musician. I'm figuring out what it means to be a musician. And I'm growing and I'm learning. And I'm still inquisitive, and I still have that energy. Anyways, there's a concert at the school, and I was invited to be the final performance at the high school concert. And I had this idea of inviting my grandfather to sing with me, because my grandfather, John, let's call him John for the rest. John was a brilliant singer. Imagine Bing Crosby, that kind of warmth. And so I invited him to this concert, and on the telephone, and he said, "Well, I'd love to. That sounds like a lovely time." So he shows up to the high school, and we sing the song, and then I had this idea. We had a recording studio in the high school, so I said, "Why don't we go and record this song?" The next day, I had a phone call from my grandmother saying, "Just so you know, that experience your grandfather told me was the best in his life. What you did is you allowed him to feel as though he was not only a part of your life, but he was a musician, because he wanted to be a musician his whole life and wasn't able to. He was living through the war. He was in London, England, in 1949. Okay." So it was a challenging time. It was just right around the war, and in fact, no, you know what? He was there right during the war. So he was there 1943 is what I meant. Right, he had to hide in bunkers with his family for his life. So he came to Canada. He brought his musical spirit, but he wasn't able to express it. And then here I come with all this musical energy, and he just gave it all to me. So my grandmother told me that experience was the very best he ever had musically. And I hung on to that. And that song was the pinnacle element of what made that so special. So time goes on, life goes on. We all get a little older, and this is when I needed these. And as life does so often, it teaches you of what's the most important. Excuse me. Allergy season. And we heard the news that Granddad had cancer, and this was in 2013. And I learned so much about that. I learned so much about life in that moment. I learned about how it's all finite, and I learned about how the things that we hold on to that we assume are there for life aren't. But what I did learn then is because of that finite element of everything, I needed to hold on while I had it, while I had my granddad there. So there was a few years that went by, and we spent more time with the family. Not that we hadn't spent time with them anyways. We were very close as a family. We are very close as a family. And family time for me meant sitting around the piano, either Granddad playing or me playing, us all singing songs together. And his playing got a little bit more weak. His voice got weak. And he relied on me more. And I held the gauntlet and I continued his music. So now we're at the end of his life. And it's the year 2014, sorry. And we're in the hospital. And I'm sad because I've never experienced death before. And the man that I love so much, who taught me so much, who was so close to his children and his grandchildren, was leaving us. And all I had and all I knew was that music was the continuous element that would keep us together. So in the final week, I went to the hospital to visit. And I clicked record on my phone. I just had this feeling as though I needed to do something. And I didn't even really, to this day, I describe it as this confusing but powerfully spirit-moved moment. I clicked record and I put my phone down. And I just asked my granddad questions. Granddad, what was the best moment of your life? Granddad, if there was anything you could change in your life, what would it be? Granddad, what's a lesson that you can give me? Granddad, what's life about? Why are we here? And I remember the answer to that one. And he said, son, we're here to make love and make art and make music. We're here to be together, and we're here to enjoy every moment. We're here to share, and we're here to give. And those words stuck with me. And then he said, can I sing you a song? And he said it to me. And I'm usually the one offering songs. And I said, please. And what do you think he sang to me? He sang someone to watch over me. And so I left that day knowing that this might be near the end. And yet it wasn't. There was this miraculous shift in his health. And we felt that God was moving through him and through our family. And he was given a few more months. And he went home. And we took that last few months as a time of celebration. It wasn't a mourning time. It wasn't sad. It was celebration. So 2 months go by. Now I'm getting ready to go do my master's, okay? I'm going to Toronto. I got a big new chapter in my life. I'm focused on this. I need to find a house in Toronto. It's really hard to find rent in 2015, let alone 2022. And I went and I found a house, or I was on my way to go check out this house. And as I'm out the door, a card pulls up, and it's Granddad. And he hasn't left the house in months. He's very ill. And he was with my grandmother. And they came up the driveway, and we said, what are you doing here? And he said, I felt I needed to get out. And I said, well, I gave them a hug and a kiss, and I said, I'm so sorry, but I'm on my way out. And he said, and I remember he put his hand on my shoulder and said, Brad, would you sing me a song? So I kind of frustratingly went, well, because I was going to be late for my meeting. And I said, okay, all right. So I turned around and I went inside. And I sat down on a piano and I sang without thinking, without recognizing that it was the same song he sang to me. I didn't even put it together until much later. I sang Someone to Watch Over Me. I gave him a hug and a kiss. And for some reason, there was a photograph taken of that moment, which means that I have a photograph of the first time I played piano in his basement. And I have a photograph of that moment, which ended up being the very last time that I made music with my grandfather. And if it hadn't been for him coming up the driveway and telling me to stop and slow down and sing with him, I wouldn't have had that experience and that opportunity. So then one more element to the story. We finally get the call that he's in his last legs. And so I head to the hospital. And I kid you not, as I walk in the hospital, there was a string quartet in the lobby, and they were playing Someone to Watch Over Me. And I broke down, and there's some moments in life that you can't deny that God is within. And those moments are the ones that you cherish. And I walked over to him, and I told him I loved him, and he held my hand against his heart, and he said, you're there forever. And I said, you're there forever too. And I said, I promise every song I sing, I devote to you, my grandfather. I love you. And I left, and I had to acknowledge that was the last time I'd see him, which is an experience that is hard to do, and I don't know if you've ever done that, and you might have. But having to acknowledge that this was the very end was harder than anything I had experienced at that point in my life. And then I realized that it's just not as hard and drab as it might seem, because this music that I have so fortunately shared with Granddad John is still alive. So I'm going to sing the song that has meant more to me than any song on earth. But I want you to think of it as more than just a love song, because it is a love song. You know, I actually, the lyrics I said are, I'm going to change a little bit of the way it's sung so that it comes from my perspective. But if I read these lyrics to you, perhaps think of it as a guardian. I need someone to watch over me. You know, the whole time I was singing this song, I was thinking that it was someone to love romantically, but perhaps the deepest, chorused element of this song is looking for someone to love you like my granddad loved me. There's a saying old, says that love is blind. Still, we're often told, seek and ye shall find. So I'm going to seek a certain gal I've had in mind. I'm looking everywhere. I haven't found her yet. She's the big affair I cannot forget. Only girl I ever think of with regret. I'd like to add her initial to my monogram. Tell me, where's the shepherd for this lost lamb? There's a somebody I'm longing to see. I hope that she turns out to be someone to watch over me. I'm a little lamb who's lost in the woods. I know I could always be good to one who'll watch over me. Although I may not be the man some girls think of as handsome, but to her heart I carry the key. Won't you tell her, please, to put on some speed? Follow my lead. Oh, how I need someone to watch over me. As always, this one's for you, Granddad, and this one's for you. There's a saying old says that love is blind. Still we're often told, seek and ye shall find. Though I'm going to seek a certain gal I've had in mind. Looking everywhere, haven't found her yet. She's the big affair I cannot forget. Only girl I ever think of with regret. I like to add her initials to my monogram. Tell me, where is the shepherd for this lost lamb? There's somebody I'm longing to see. I hope that she turns out to be someone to watch over me. I'm a little lamb who's lost in the woods. I know I could always be good to one who watch over me. Although I may not be the man some girls think of as handsome, to her heart I'll carry the key. Won't you tell her, please, to put on some speed, follow my lead? Oh, how I need someone to watch over me. Someone to watch over me. Thanks be to God. Amen.